Jacob in Tennessee.
Why does it sound like
I thought you agreed with us on everything except for trans stuff, but now you're identifying as a conservative. What happened?
I've always told you I was conservative.
Nah, just kidding. I don't give a fuck.
Oh, for me, it's low key helping me stay focused. Because just like, it's just like the for anybody wondering, me and Jimmy are both playing Pokemon. Here, I want to know something. I want to know something from him. So I'm gonna pull it up real quick. Jacob, all I want from you, don't say anything else. I don't want to hear a single word. Just tell me what source you have that proves that gender affirming care is worse than the alternative.
Okay. Let me get the source for you. I have 3. That's okay.
Just give me one. Just name of study.
So, okay. I'll open my document here. So let's see here. So the name
How's
of the
your channel
study
going?
is...
Trying to build on the back of ours.
Hold on, Jimmy. Hold on. We can do that. We can do that after, Jimmy. Hold on. Go ahead. Give me the name of the study.
Don't have a YouTube channel. Don't know what you're talking about. Let's see here. So the one that is found negative results was examining gender-specific mental health risks after gender-affirming surgery, a national database study. From 1,758 participants, matched cohorts demonstrated that those undergoing surgery...
Okay, great. I'm just putting you on mute, sorry, so that me and Jimmy can look at this. I can both step you and see without you. Examining gender-specific mental health risks after gender-affirming surgery, a national database study. Training interview face outcomes were differences in mental health disorders, specifically depression, anxiety, suicide ideation, body dysmorphic disorder, substance disorder amongst trans individuals post-surgery. Let's see. From 107,580 patients, matched cohorts demonstrated that those undergoing surgery were at significantly higher risk for depression disorder than those without surgery. Male surgery showed a higher prevalence of depression, with similar trends, complications. Okay, so this isn't showing me gender affirming surgery, while beneficial in affirming gender identity, is associated with increased risk of mental health issues, underscoring the need. This isn't showing me causality. So
right.
I don't know what he
read the
thinks this is
abstraction,
doing.
and I've already found some extensions of the conclusion that actually point out that increased mental health risk after surgery does not mean the surgery itself is categorically worse. It's possible these risks are due to underlying stress, marginalization, or selective bias in the surgical population and not solely upon the result of the procedure, which we've already identified this with Jacob. Jacob reads abstractions and then draws conclusions of it and turns observational studies into causal studies. We already are aware that this is a thing he does. And in fact, there have been contradictory findings out there where he's like, oh, but those ones don't make my point. So the fact that there are people who take a study like this and go, ooh, you did not account for this and this, let's go ahead and do that. And you end up having contradictory studies when they expand all of that. And again, remember that he is fully making these arguments, unless he's changed his mind from when we first went, on whether or not children should have access to gender affirming care. Because I believe he's the one of the like adults can do whatever they want. And he says that Republicans have the moral superior position on trans youth health care, which doesn't include gender reassignment surgery on the opposition side. They have just straight out prohibition. And these are things about puberty blockers. But again, Jacob reads abstractions and then goes, here's the conclusion I drew on it, even though the researchers who do those studies do not draw that conclusion.
All right. I'm going to ask him a second question. Jacob, how do you contend with the fact that this is a correlation study, not a causation study?
I've never said correlation equal causation. I'm giving you evidence from my case.
Okay, Jacob, hold on. My question specifically to you. Okay, I'm gonna mute you because I'm not worried about your other studies. We're focusing on this study now. If me and Jimmy feel like you've done a good job, we'll move to the next study. My specific question to you. Yeah, my specific question to you was to show me evidence that this is worse than the alternative. And your evidence says there is no causation. There may be a correlation, but it does not establish any sort of temporality, and it does not establish the fact that the surgery itself caused any changes in mental health. It looked at associations, but it didn't look at causations. So if this is a poor study, take it out of your rotation, But I just want to know how you contend with the fact that this was not a causality study and it's just a correlation study. I'll unmute you. I just want to hear an answer to that question.
Correlating it with multiple other studies that I have.
Okay, so this one leaves the rotation. So show me another study.
I have another question on this study for Jacob before it leaves the rotation. Hey, Jacob, how were the participants matched for this study? Were participants monitored from before they were went through their surgeries before, or were they selected after? I believe the term is retrospective. Were they retrospective?
Oh my God.
Jacob, were they retrospectively matched or not in that study you gave us?
He hung up.
Oh, no shit. You just got
He might have disconnected.
Wrapped, son.
He might have disconnected, but he's gone. This is fully a retrospective study. Cohorts A through D included patients with or without surgery. Cohorts either have allowed for gender comparison among those with surgery.
Okay,
so yeah, they just
come back in.
Okay. Yeah, this just looked at
Jacob,
just so that
the
chat knows.
Which one was it? Was this study conducted where you follow people through their experience, or were they retrospectively matched in this study? Come on, Jacob. Answer the question.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yeah, we hear you. We brought you back on immediately.
Forgive me.
In the study that you presented,
I got hung up on for a second.
The first one, you hung up. We didn't do shit. The first one that you gave us, presumably your best, is this data, was this study actually conducted following people through their journey, or was this a retrospective study?
Well, it's basically from beginning to end. I can give you the quote from the study.
Incorrect.
No, it's a retrospective.
And it's called retrospective. Every single person selected for this study had already gone through their transitions. They were picked after. Their data was picked after. Retrospective studies have a place in science, and usually it is to go, hey, we just collected this data, and when we look at this retrospectively, if somebody were to pull this, you could indicate something that isn't true. So this indicates basically a retrospective study is the terrible study you do before a real one.
Well, so two things. So one, they did pull some people before surgery, but they didn't, like Jimmy said, they didn't follow along with their journey. So they didn't say, how did the gender affirming care affect the change? They just looked at people who had received it and people who hadn't and said, well, the people in this group had lower rates of all these, people who had higher rates of all these, not accounting for the why that might be. The study also has clinical implications, which is where the people who wrote the study says, hey, this is what we're sort of saying should happen now clinically. And what they say for their clinical implications is findings suggest the necessity for gender-sensitive mental health support following gender-affirming surgery to address post-surgical psychological risks. Not let's get rid of surgery, just, hey, we should still do this, but provide adequate post-surgery counseling. So this study
we had that study.
Does not, hold on. If you had that study, that should have been the one that should have been the one you led with. So we're going to count this study as a wash. I got to present you
this one first, just for this reason.
So that way we could say that this study doesn't tell what you said it did?
Has Jacob's accent changed also?
Okay, hold on. I need to mute you for a second, Jacob. My question to you at the start of this was to provide me a study that shows that gender-affirming surgery, which is what you want to talk about, the risks for it outweigh the benefits, and it's bad and we shouldn't do it. This study says we should do it. We should just have gender-sensitive mental health support following the surgery to address post-surgical psychological risks. It also is not a causality study. It doesn't look at causality. So you're going to go off mute. All I want now is the name of this supposed causality study that you have. That's all I want to hear. That's all Jimmy wants to hear. So just provide the name of the causality study so me and Jimmy can analyze that one.
Wow, this is really specific. Long-term follow-up of transsexual persons undergoing sex reassignment surgery. Cohort study in Sweden.
Slow down.
Oh my God, no, stop, Jimmy. Nope. We're not even doing this. It's the goddamn Sweden study. It's the goddamn Sweden study. The Sweden study, my G, does not look at trans people pre or post surgery. It only looks at trans people versus the general population. This was the first thing me and you talked about the last time you had a conversation with me and Jimmy. I said you're gonna pull up the goddamn Sweden study, and you did pull up the goddamn Sweden study. Again, long-term follow-up of transsexual persons undergoing sex reassignment surgery cohort study in Sweden. That's what you pulled up. The objective of this study is to only look at trans people versus a random population control group. It does not look at the pre and post surgical care. And in fact, this same study mentions time and time again in the study that it's not looking at these things. It says it's for itself. The methodological shortcomings have many reasons. First, the nature of sex reassignment precludes double-blind randomized control studies of the result. We know this. It also says taken, where is it? Here. Oh shit, where's the part in the study that says that?
I already found it too. It does not conclude that the surgery causes harm. It concludes that you need to continue to have lifelong mental health support post-surgery, especially in a society that more broadly rejects trans people. Jesus Christ, Jacob, it's just, you've said you agree with us on everything except trans stuff. And you're sitting here going like, I just really don't want to find trans people attractive. So I have to like just lock down in this shit. Somebody tried to call me on making that joke the other day. It was like, Jimmy, what did he say? Like, you're secretly attracted to conservatives. That's why you hate them. And I was like, secretly? I talked about what a baby Abigail Shapiro is despite being a monster for like 6 minutes the other day.
So Jacob, I just want to know how you handle the fact that this survey that this study that you put to us, which was a survey of all this, does not analyze pre and post surgical outcomes. My question to you was to provide me evidence that surgery, the risks of it outweigh the benefits. You've provided 2 studies that do not analyze pre and post surgical outcomes. So contend with that. You will have 60 seconds to answer that question.
Yeah, so you have to correlate multiple studies upon each other and then correlate maybe another study or 2. So the first study I gave you was a negative correlation from trans youth healthcare, or basically saying that the current methodology was not working and there are negative consequences. And we need better.
Hold on, Jimmy. Wait.
And we
Jimmy,
have
let him go.
Study.
Let him go. I promise. Let him go. I promise.
In Sweden. We have that study.
Okay.
It was done in Sweden. There's another study that's
nope, we're not. Okay, so now I have to mute you. We're not on to another study yet. This study that you gave me, okay? This study you gave me, the Sweden study, okay, does not say what you say it says, okay? All this study says is that, in fact, this study even highlights that surgery alleviates gender dysphoria. It's just that it's not sufficient to remedy all of the mortality or issues. The study you said quite literally says that the surgery and hormonal therapy alleviate gender dysphoria, which is the point of them. The study you pointed again does not show pre and post care. So if you have a different study, again, that shows pre and post, that with gender affirming care, the issues get worse if you get gender affirming surgical care. That's what I want. Okay? So I'm going to let you talk again. I just want the study that shows that things get worse, because all you've given me are 2 studies that show no correlation. 2 studies, both retrospective, both show no correlation. So I'm going to unmute you again. All I want is the name of the study that shows the pre and post care that it gets worse.
Jovan, that's not my conclusion.
Okay. Jimmy, I muted him again. Jimmy, did I not say at the start of this call, all that I wanted was to show that the risks of gender affirming care outweigh the benefits? Is that not what I said at the very start of our conversation? So if I was giving a false premise, you should have said that at the beginning instead of moving to studies to give what I asked you to give. So I'm going to say next, I don't want to hear anything else except a syllogism from you. I want a premise 1, a premise 2, and a conclusion so that me and Jimmy know exactly what you're arguing. So if I hear anything besides a syllogism, you will go on mute. So provide a syllogism for your claim. Let's see if it unmutes properly this time.
Okay. Major premise. The prefrontal cortex is one of the brain regions where the underlying complex process of self-reflection, goal setting, commitment, and planning for one's own identity. Minor premise. During adolescence, the prefrontal cortex undergoes maturing, and individual differences in the maturing are associated with low adolescent explorer and commit to their identities. And so the conclusion, therefore, identity formation is associated with and partially depends on the maturation of the prefrontal cortex, which is not
Great. Thank you. That was I got it. Thank you. That was all your premise 1, premise 2, and conclusion. If this is the case, that this is your P1, P2C, and this is the argument you're operating off of, I would assume you have some evidence to show us that there is a statistically significant amount of people who become trans at a young age, go through gender affirming care, and then regret it later on or detransition because your claim is that their identities are not formed solidly, therefore we shouldn't be doing this to them. Please provide that information which would ground and solidify your P1, P2C. Okay? Please provide that information. You are unmuted now.
Okay, so it would be in the form of a scientific study from a peer-reviewed journal. And the name of the study is, or there's 2 studies, maturation of widely distributed brain function observes cognitive development. So study 1. Study 2, a shift from diffusal to focal cortical activity with development.
Okay, so I'm putting you on mute because that seems to be helping me, you, and Jimmy have an actual conversation as if we just mute you in between. Neither of the things you labeled show me that the people who do identify as trans, so a trans girl or a trans boy who identify this way in youth, change that identity later in life. What it is you're making speculative claims saying that, well, because the brain, in my opinion, has not formed to where it needs to solidify identity, then it's clear that their identities are not solidified. So my question, and I'll repeat it because maybe you didn't hear it, provide the evidence that shows that trans people specifically, and you can even boil it down to youth, have a statistically significant regret rate and or a statistically significant detransition rate. That's what I would like to see, because other than that, you're just speculating. You are unmuted. I'd like that study now.
Okay, so I can get you that study. It'll take just a second. It shows that 30% of trans people desist. And I also have a study that shows that dementia is related with trans sex hormones.
I don't care about dementia. I don't care about any of that. I'd like the study.
You don't care about dementia? Brain atrophy?
I do not care about I don't care about it right now.
Notice how he's trying to jump on now the phrase, because he's like, I know I'm going to get fucked up when I present that other study. So now I want to jump on something like you saying, you don't care about dementia? It hurts so many families every year.
Provide the study that shows the regret rate and shows a statistical significant regret rate and or detransition rate of gender diverse, particularly gender incongruent children. I would like that study.
Can I give you my conclusion instead of you giving me what my conclusion is? Would that be okay?
No. Hold on. Wait, Jimmy, hold on. Our conversation here, okay? And I'm cutting Jimmy off more than usual, but that's okay, because I rewatched that video of the abortion debate, and I was mad. So I was like, I'm going to cut Jimmy off this episode because he wouldn't let me have that abortion debate the other day. Our entire conversation is about whether gender affirming care is good or bad. That's the entire premise of the conversation. So under that premise, if you are saying via your syllogism that identities have not yet formulated, this would lead to the conclusion that gender affirming care is bad because they would either, and this again, they would either regret it or they would detransition, right? That would be the only logical way to go through the conversation. Any other avenue you take is illogical per the whole premise of the argument. Now, if you want to have a different conversation, which is not about gender affirming care, and you want to concede on the gender affirming care point, maybe we can touch on the other things. But what I want to know, because this entire thing stemmed from gender affirming care, right? There would be no reason to include any of those other studies that you included in this if this was not about gender affirming care, is to show the evidence via a statistical significance that youth have a desist, detransition, or regret rate. So that is what I need from you in a study.
Can I give you my own conclusion?
No.
Because you're telling me what my conclusion is. That's not my conclusion.
I don't care what your conclusion is because you haven't supported it. We are asking you the support of your conclusion because you've been going, we already found out that your first two studies were retrospectives. And then a moment ago, you promised us a 30% desistance study. Then you wanted to go on dementia because you know that that's going to wreck you when you go for it. So until you give us supportive evidence, no one here cares about your conclusion because you aren't qualified to make them. However, so far, everybody who is doing a study that includes people qualified to make conclusions have not made the conclusions you have. So we're ready for the study that validates your conclusions, not just hear you repeat your dumbass conclusion. By the way, before we unmute him again, 33654-32101. Since every MAGA person calling today is apparently only able to talk about trans issues, I am begging. MAGA, you can't. You can't defend MAGA unless you're talking about trans issues. You think you have a thing to say about immigration, and that thing tends to fall apart too. You definitely can't defend Trump's economic policies. You definitely can't defend the tariffs. You can't defend his crypto policies. You can't defend his foreign aid policy or his foreign policies. You can't defend that the government shutdown is the Democrats' fault. You know it's the Republicans' fault. You can't defend that SNAP is not Trump's fault. That SNAP expiring isn't the Republicans' fault. You can't defend that 40 million people is actually too many people to have on. You can say the phrases, but you can't defend any of them. And that's why you're not calling. The phone number is 33654-32101. To the leftist who wants to hear about socialism or is a leftist but wants to try, we don't do test debating here, and we only have 48 minutes left, most of which I hope we do not spend on Jacob.
No, I'm gonna give Jacob 30 seconds to
I already know what
tell
study
me his conclusion, and then 30 seconds to give the study. That's
Hang
all.
on, real quick before you unmute him. I'm gonna message you what study it's going to be. I just want to see.
Oh my god, this will be a fun game. Yeah, this will be a fun game. Yeah. Send it. It'll be like the Newlywed Show.
I'll put it in our calling it now thing. Yeah.
Okay. So what's going to happen here, Jacob, is I'm going to unmute you. I will give you 30 seconds. Okay. I'll give you 30 seconds to give whatever new conclusion you want to give. That's going drastically different from the one you've been operating under. And then I will mute you to pick apart that conclusion. And then I will give you 30 seconds to provide the study. So you have 30 seconds starting now. I'm timing it to give me your conclusion.
You need to subtract about 5 seconds. So my conclusion, because I have loved ones who I don't want to become a statistic, is that trans youth healthcare needs maturing. We need to accept the bad facts and mature the science and not pretend like there's nothing to see here. Hence why it's the more moral position. You just want to sweep them under the rug.
Great. Now go ahead and give your study because I don't have time for
Did you Google the 30%, Jimmy?
No,
so you could
not yet. You're not giving the study yet. I need to address this. So Jacob's conclusion, and I'm going to just repeat it word for word because I wrote it all down. Trans youth healthcare needs maturing, accept bad facts, mature the science, and not pretend nothing to see here. You just want to sweep under the rug. This is a false conclusion for a litany of reasons. One, the way I talk about gender affirming care is always under a risk-benefit analysis. It's that there are risks, just like there are risks to every healthcare. It's just that the benefit of those outweigh the risks. So your conclusion, the one you're calling to argue with us about, is faulty and has no place in the argument because both Jimmy and myself understand that no medical procedure is perfect. There are going to be risks and side effects to all of them. I've never claimed that there are not. I've only ever claimed that you can detransition. That is something that can happen, whether the side effects have happened or not. So under this premise, we have nothing to argue about. Because again, your claim is that we need to accept the bad facts and pretend there's nothing to see here. We don't disagree that there are side effects and there could be potential negatives. Our disagreement comes in the fact that the benefits outweigh this, and the people that should be making the choice is not you, it is the parents, the doctors, and their children. So because of this, I'd like to move on to one of the next callers. I personally will give Jacob 10 seconds to respond to that. Oh yeah, you give the study and we'll see if you were right. And then we'll give Jacob 10 seconds.
No, Jacob, wait, are we going to ask him what study it is? Jacob, what study? Yeah. What was the name of the study you were claiming?
I love it. I love it. Okay, so the study is detransition and desistance among previously trans-identified young adults, which you just Googled to make you look clever, Jimmy.
No, because that's actually not where the 30% number comes from. So I don't know what yours, the 30% number that's popular, the 30% number that is popularly claimed out on Twitter is from continuation of gender affirming hormones in transgender people starting puberty suppressions in mid-adolescence, a cohort study of privately insured and Medicaid covered individuals younger than 55 years old in the US.
Well, I guess there's a second study, Jimmy.
No, there isn't.
At the end of the day,
that's where the 30% came from. And by the way, the conclusion on that is they don't actually know why they quote unquote desisted, especially because that study specifically where the 30% number is has to do with 1,655 transgender adolescents specifically in military coverage, because there are multiple groups covered in there with military coverage, and that 30% of participants discontinued the hormone after 90 days. After using it for at least 90 days. And the thing that the actual researchers point out is that they do not know the reason. It could have been external pressures, or they don't even have the number for how many people desisted after they lost access to the military healthcare system. So literally, and the broader study shows that the number of people who quote unquote desist, that the regret rate is somewhere in the 2 to 3% rate in their study. That's where the 30% number comes from. Whatever one you pulled out, I imagine will also say just as much wrong with what your conclusion is as the first two studies you said.
I want to just reiterate here. Jacob has consistently been saying he holds the moral position and the scientific position on this. He's been in both me and Jimmy's comments. He's made videos on his page to show his quote unquote sources, a bunch of which we know he didn't actually read. And his entire argument was based off of not knowing me and Jimmy's position. So now he thinks he got a win when the entirety of it was he didn't know our actual positions from the start. Because he doesn't listen. We have
anything in common, his conclusion of what you should do with that information is entirely divergent from ours.
Yes. He believes you should. Well, he didn't believe. He operated under a listening to respond moniker, not a listen to listen. So Jacob, thanks for playing. Hopefully we never have to hear from you again, because
he's
also
just kind of that annoying. His position isn't because the prefrontal cortex isn't finished development until 25. No one should get trans care until at least after that or sometime in adulthood, which, by the way, even the 25 number is stupid. I hate people use it for way too many things. And it's like, it's going to be so easy when it's important to anchor an actual argument on that to debunk that we have to stop using those stupid numbers. We've done that with other numbers in the past, like only 2% of people lie about sexual assault. And so you're like, it's so easy to debunk that if you're literally going to anchor to that, at some point, it's not a matter of of course, everybody on our side is going to agree. So sexual assault is wrong and you should believe women. But when you're trying to convince other people and they can go quickly and find that debunk of that statement, it just makes you look dumb. And he's sitting there doing the same thing with the 25 number.
I'm going to quickly go put this freezer into the garage. It'll take me 2 seconds, Jimmy, and then I'll be back.
Cool, I'll wait for you.
If you like this debate and you want to see more debates like this, head over to the Lines page at QN Align or Jimmy Snow on the Line at Jimmy Snow.